Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our public hearing tonight. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with Eagle's Environmental Support Division. I'll be helping to moderate this public hearing tonight, which is for Ultium Battery Cell Manufacturing Facility in Delta Township, Eaton County. But before we get started too far, I just have a couple logistical things to go through. This is kind of our agenda for the night. I'm going to go through a quick introduction, which I'm doing right now. And then the hearing tonight will kind of be in two parts. The first part is going to be an informational session, or there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to describe the proposed project, followed by a quick question and answer session, which should go no later than about 6:30. We'll try to wrap it up before then, or until we're done with all the questions and answers. And then after we get through that Q&A session, we'll go through the ways to submit an official comment. And then after that, the official hearing portion will start, where you'll have a chance to make an official statement for the record on this application and project. And then we'll also talk about where to find other information and who to contact with further questions. All right, in case you haven't attended one of our public hearings before online, all lines are muted during the hearing. We'll be unmuting people to give the presentations and to make your statements, but at all other times you'll be muted. You can submit your questions at any time using the questions box in the go-to toolbar. When we actually do the Q&A portion, you also have an opportunity to raise your hand and we can call on you at that time. And then also we're recording this webinar. The recording will be on our YouTube channel a couple days after today. All right, so with that, I would like to invite our other Eagle staff who are on the line to turn the cameras on and introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Jeff Pierce. I'm going to be serving as the hearings officer for tonight's public hearing. I work out of the Lansing District Office, Environmental Quality Analyst for Water Resources Division, and I am tasked with reviewing the application that has been submitted.
I'm Mary Vanderlaan, District Supervisor for the Lansing Resource Unit. Jeff is one of my staff people.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mary and Jeff. So we're going to move right into the question and answer, or the presentation, followed by the question and answer section. So we have Grace Griffin and Jim Hartnett who are with us today, and we're going to unmute Grace and Jim. All right, you should both be unmuted on our end. You can turn your microphones off or on, and then you can begin your presentation when you're ready. I have your slides here. Please try to keep it down to like 10 or 15 minutes so that we have time for additional question and answer, and then just let me know when you want to change slides.
Okay, so I believe I'm up first. Good evening. My name is Grace Griffin. I'm the plant director for Ultium Cells battery facility in Lansing, Michigan. So thank you for the opportunity to share our business. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So Ultium Cells is a joint venture between General Motors and LG Energy Solutions. Ultium Cells is an independent company leveraging the strengths of our partners. LG Energy Solutions provides the intellectual property for product design and process design, and GM brings to the table knowledge of lean manufacturing with expertise in safety and people systems. In Lansing, the $2.6 billion, as you can see on the slide, it says 2.3, but it's actually $2.6 billion facility, which will sit at 2.8 million square feet, will have the capacity to produce 50 gigawatt hours of energy. The cell picture that you see to the right is the approximate size of an Ultium cell, which will produce millions of. It's 18 inches long by about 4 inches wide and about 1 pound in weight. Our intention is to begin production in Q3 of 24, and we'll staff approximately, really greater than 1,700 new high technology jobs. Next slide, please. So General Motors brands, oh, maybe next, there you go. It's just populating on my end. You can go ahead and populate the whole slide. Thank you. General Motors brands is our customer. So you can see pictured here, we have vehicles such as our GMC Hummer, our Cadillac Lyric, and the newly announced Chevy EV Blazer, which is not pictured on the slide, that are part of the product line that our cells will go into. The cells we produce here in Lansing are currently slated to power vehicles produced in the Northeast. So our cells will go to facilities such as Factory Zero in Detroit Hamtramck, and then our Orion facility. Next slide, please. The Lansing facility joins two others, which are in progress. So the facility in Warren, Ohio, started production in August of 22. It will employ 1,500 people. The current facility in Spring Hill, Tennessee is in construction and will start production in Q3 of 23. And then if you go to the next slide, please. I've shared our Lansing facility, and we have identified a fourth site, which will start production in calendar year of 2025. So before I hand it over to my colleague, Jim, to overview our wetland impact, I'd just like to thank you again. Ultium Cells is grateful for the opportunity to be part of the Lansing community. We strive to be a good neighbor, partner, and employer. Okay, go to the next slide, I believe, Jim.
Yep. Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Hartnett. I'm an environmental manager with General Motors, and I'll give you a quick summary of the wetland impacts we're requesting in the permit. Next slide, please. So the project is located on property that GM owns. GM acquired property in 2000, and shortly after that built the Lansing assembly and stamping facility, and the location is just on the west side of the city of Lansing. Next slide. So when GM acquired the property in 2000, they shortly after that did a wetland survey of the property. And so we kind of used that 2001 wetland survey to get a sense of where Ultium might be able to fit a 2 million square foot assembly plant. And so we identified an area on the southwest portion of the site that's away from a 100-acre wetland complex to the north and west of the existing manufacturing facility. Next slide. So earlier this year, we performed a jurisdictional wetland determination with Eagle and identified within the project area where there were jurisdictional wetlands. And then the design team went out and tried to fit our facility to minimize the impacts. One thing on this figure shows a kind of some wetlands towards the northeast on the figure, and that was a utility corridor that we were considering during the initial design phases, that we then found another alternative, which I'll show on the next slide. So if we can go to the next slide. So we were able to fit the site within the property with minimum impact to wetlands. And so you can see where the building's going to fit. And then we've got 4 stormwater ponds, 1 to the west and 3 to the north. The one to the west discharges to a drain nearby, and the 3 lagoons to the north discharge to the wetland complex to the north of the site. You can see this. There's kind of a circle there at the top. That's a buffer zone around a bald eagle nest that was identified, and we worked with Fish and Wildlife to determine that as long as we stayed out of that buffer, we'd avoid impacts to that bald eagle nest. You can also see on this slide on the right of the picture is a utility corridor, and that utility corridor brings the water, sewer, gas from a tie-in point at the northeast end of the GM property down and around to the Ultium site. So We've got a couple of small impacts along that corridor. So if we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about where the impacts actually are. Along the north side of the main site, we've got two impacts, one of 6/10 of an acre and another one of 3/10 of an acre. And those were, really unavoidable. We weren't able to shift the facility any further to the south. And really shifting it east or west wasn't going to avoid these impacts. A portion of the 6/10 of an acre was a farmed field, but it was identified as a wetland, and there's a portion that's forested wetland there. Again, we've got about 100-acre wetland complex to the north, and we're impacting less than an acre. Next slide, please. And along the utility corridor, there was two very small impacts. One was a drainage ditch that the utility companies will have to do a jack and bore to route the utilities underneath that drainage on the left side of the figure. And then there's a very small impact, 0.03 of an acre along a corridor where we're routing the water and sewer lines, which again, we should be able to minimize those impacts, but we've got them. So on the next slide, I think is a summary of the total impacts. So the total impacts are 0.923 acres. And then when you go through the replacement ratios and calculate out what needs to be mitigated, a total of 1.645 acres or wetland credits need to be purchased. And we're purchasing those through a sandstone wetland bank in the watershed area. So that is the plan. And I think that's the last slide. So that's a quick summary of the wetland impacts at the site.
Yeah, thanks, Grace and Jim, for providing the info on the project. So we're going to move right in kind of the question and answer portion of tonight. Just going to go over quick how to ask your questions. You can type your question if you have one in the Q&A box. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen, just type it in. And then if you prefer, you're also welcome to raise your hand in Zoom. You can click the hand icon. And then if there's anybody on the phone, which I didn't last I checked, if there's anybody on the phone, you can select #2 on your receiver. And what that'll do is raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you in turn. So if there's any questions, and the only other thing I want to clarify is that this is a time for the questions on the project or application. If you want to make a statement for the record on this application and project, you will do that a little bit later on tonight, and we'll explain how we're going to go through that. But this is the time to ask any questions. So are there any questions at this time? I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A box. And I'm not seeing any raised hands at this time. Give it a couple more seconds, but if we don't have any questions, then we're going to move kind of right into the next portion of tonight. And I'm still not seeing any, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. So thank you again, Grace and Jim, for that presentation. All right. All right. And we're going to move into the kind of the more hearing portion of tonight, where you'll be able to make that statement for the record on the project. But before we do that, I want to identify the other ways you can submit an official comment in case you didn't want to make a statement tonight. You can provide your comments directly to My Waters by accessing the public hearing event under submission HPG WHHYZ9TTH. And you can access it at that link below. And I think that link is going to go in the chat here. Or by mail, you can send your comments in by mail to Eagle, Water Resources Division, Lansing District Office, 525 West Allegan Street, P.O. Box 30473, Lansing, Michigan 48909. The comment period is going to be open for 10 days, which will be October 2nd. And I also want to mention that we're going to show you the slide again in case you don't get a copy down at this time. So you'll have another chance to look at this information. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start this hearing part. So I would like to invite Jeff Pierce to read the opening hearing statement for it.
Thanks, Ryan. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Pierce. I am the district representative for the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. I will be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on Eagle submission number HPG-WHHY-Z9TTH. With me tonight is Mary Vanderlaan, who is our Lansing District Supervisor for the Water Resources Division. I also believe we have Luis Saldivia, who is not listed on the original PowerPoint page, he's our field ops supervisor for the Water Resources Division as well. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I'll begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. For some background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing these responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act of 1994. It's Public Act 451 as amended, heretofore referred to as Act 451. We are here tonight because Ultium Cells has proposed the following. They propose to place fill in wetlands, install utility lines through wetlands, and construct 4 stormwater detention basins for the purpose of constructing a battery cell manufacturing facility to supply GM facilities in Michigan and Ontario. Within the footprint of the proposed building, a 0.61 acre of wetland 1B will be impacted by 8,155 cubic yards of fill, and 0.31 acres of wetland 16 will be impacted by 598 cubic yards of fill. In wetland East 2, a 21-foot long by 8-foot wide segment of wetland will be impacted by 8 cubic yards of excavation and backfill by open trench, and the installation of a 20-inch diameter water main, a 10-inch diameter sanitary line, and a 4-inch natural gas pipeline along Guinea Road. In wetland East 1, a 20-inch diameter water main, a 10-inch diameter sanitary line, and an 8-inch natural gas pipeline will be installed by jack and bore method at a depth of 5 feet below the grade. Stormwater will be detained and treated on site in 4 sediment basins. Pond 1 discharges to the Thornapple extension number 920 drain, and ponds 2, 3, and 4 will discharge to wetlands. Construction of pond 1 includes the excavation of 39,525 cubic yards and construction of a 24-inch outfall to the Thornapple and Old Maid drain. Pond 2 includes excavation of 15,560 cubic yards and a 24-inch outfall to wetlands. Pond 3 includes excavation of 7,380 cubic yards and a 12-inch outfall to wetlands, and Pond 4 includes an excavation of 21,925 cubic yards and twin 36-inch outfalls to wetlands. All spoils will be disposed of in upland, and a total of 190 cubic yards of riprap will be placed at the pond outlets. The total area of impact proposed to wetlands is 0.92 acres, and they are proposing to purchase 1.64 acres of forested wetland mitigation banking credits as compensatory mitigation for the project. So in order for a permit to be granted, Eagle must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice above meet certain criteria set forth by Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams and Part 303 Wetlands Protection of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the stream and wetlands. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 301 of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. First, the department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. And second, the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 303 Wetlands Protection of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 30311 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 30304 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. Additionally, a permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources, and a permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following. The proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in a wetland, or a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the Ultium battery factory an opportunity to provide information that Eagle can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that Eagle can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that Eagle must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that Eagle is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there's widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments, but before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the Lansing State Journal on September 9th, 2022. As we discussed at the beginning of this informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant and/or their consultant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. And second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on those that raise their hand in their Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing via telephone, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment as well. You may also submit your comments to Eagle via MyWaters, email, or US mail, which will provide the information on how to do that later. And when all comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If needed, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that Eagle staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information Eagle will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on October 2nd, 2022. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during that 10-day public comment period will also be considered in Eagle's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, Eagle will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what that decision is by checking the Eagle My Waters website and searching for the application number. We'll display that submission number on the screen here. And thank you for your attention. We will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
Yeah, thanks for reading the hearing statement, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, we would typically start with people who have indicated during registration for this hearing that they'd like to make a statement. We don't have anybody on the list who indicated that they wanted to make a statement for that tonight. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with anybody who wants to make a statement can raise your hand. And again, you can do that using your Zoom toolbar. If you're on the phone, you can select #2 and that will raise your hand virtually as well. And as Jeff mentioned, it'll be 4 minutes per person. Once your name is called, we're just going to go down the line. The first person who has their hand raised. When your name is called, you can list your name, any association or any organization that you're associated with, and then you can go ahead and start your statement after we unmute you on our end. Again, you have 4 minutes. When there's 1 minute left, we'll give you a heads up just to let you know that you have 1 minute left to wrap up any comments. And then we will move on to the next person in line until we get through everybody. So I guess at this time, is there anybody who would like to make a comment tonight? You can go ahead and you can raise your hand. And I should also mention that in case people were on the line tonight and didn't want to make a comment, but did want to make a comment, didn't want to make a comment tonight, but wanted to make a comment another way, we're going to show that slide again, either by mail or through My Waters. So there'll be that opportunity too. So does anybody want to make a comment? I don't see any hands raised right now. We're going to give it a couple more seconds in case you're looking to find that hand icon in Zoom. It should be at the bottom of your screen. And then if not, we'll go ahead and move forward and show you those other ways to make a comment and kind of move on to the next part of the hearing tonight. Does anybody want to make a comment? All right, I am not seeing any hands raised. So we're going to go ahead and Jeff, if you want to read the closing statement, we'll go ahead and close this part of the hearing and move on.
Okay. Well, thank you all for attending and for your cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until October 2nd, 2022. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, though, comments can be submitted via My Waters, email, and US mail. We'll be displaying the slide here in just a second. And at this time, I guess the hearing is now closed. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, as Jeff mentioned, I've got that slide up on how to make a comment. By My Waters, and that link is in the chat, by mail to Eagle Water Resources Division, Lansing District Office, 525 West Allegan Street, PO Box 30473, Lansing, Michigan, 48909. And the comment period is open for 10 days, which will be October 2nd. Now, if you did have additional questions and wanted to follow up, you could follow up with Jeff or Mary. Their contact information on the screen. Jeff can be reached at 517-416-4297 or PIERCEJ2@michigan.gov. That's piercej2@michigan.gov. Or Mary Vanderlaan can be reached at 517-243-6948 or by email at vanderlaan@michigan.com, vanderlaanm@michigan.gov. All right, so with that, that takes us to the end of the hearing tonight. Mary, I was wondering if you had any final comments for the people in the audience tonight?
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone who made their time available to listen to the presentations. And remember, there's 10 days open period to provide us comments, and we do look and consider all comments that are submitted. So thank you again for coming tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Mary, and thanks, Jeff, as well, and to our presenters, Grace and Jim. Last thing I have is just want to let you know again that this is a recording. This is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our website or on our YouTube channel in the next couple days. And with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and thanks for being part of this hearing.